What if the secret to wealth isn't luck, privilege, or even hard work, but something you can learn? In Unfair Advantage, The Power of Financial Education, Robert Kiyosaki declares that knowledge, specifically financial knowledge, is the ultimate unfair advantage in a world stacked against the uninformed. It's the edge that turns crises into opportunities, reduces risks, and unlocks wealth others can't see. We'll dive into the heart of Kiyosaki's first unfair advantage, exploring why traditional education fails us, how financial literacy sets you free, and what real-world examples reveal about the cost of ignorance. Through Kiyosaki's stories and sharp insights, you'll see how knowledge isn't just power. It's your ticket to thriving in an economy where the old rules no longer apply. Let's break the chains of financial ignorance together. Welcome to Summary of Unfair Advantage, The Power of Financial Education by Robert Kiyosaki. If you've ever felt trapped in the rat race, clinging to outdated ideas about money, jobs, or security, this book is a wake-up call. Robert Kiyosaki, the best-selling author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, takes us on a journey to rethink how we approach wealth in a rapidly changing world. Through his signature storytelling, Kiyosaki contrasts the lessons of his poor dad, a highly educated but financially struggling academic, with his rich dad, a savvy entrepreneur who taught him the power of financial education. We'll explore why financial knowledge is your greatest asset, how it gives you an edge in a turbulent economy, and why the old rules of money no longer apply. Buckle up. This is about breaking free from the trap and seizing control of your financial future. Part 1. The Monkey Trap and the Need for Change. Imagine a monkey, its fist clenched around a handful of fruit, stuck in a tree because it refuses to let go. This vivid metaphor opens Unfair Advantage, illustrating how people cling to outdated beliefs about money, job security, savings, a house as an asset, or a retirement plan, only to find themselves trapped in a financial cage. Kiyosaki argues that the global financial crisis, which began in 2007, exposed the fragility of these beliefs. Millions lost jobs, homes, and savings, yet many still hold tight to the same ideas that failed them. Why? Because, like the monkey, they lack the financial education to see the trap. The monkey trap, a metaphor for our financial lives. Kiyosaki's monkey trap is more than a clever anecdote. It's a stinging critique of how we approach money. In the book, he paints a picture of people, ordinary folks like you and me, holding tight to beliefs that no longer serve us. We're taught to chase job security, save every penny, buy a house as an asset, and trust our retirement to a 401k. These ideas, Kiyosaki argues, are the fruit in the trap, luring us into a financial prison. Just like the monkey, we refuse to let go, even when the world around us is screaming that the rules have changed. The hunter? It's the modern economy, global, volatile, and unforgiving to those who don't adapt. In 2011, when Kiyosaki wrote this book, the world was still reeling from the 2007 financial crisis. The subprime mortgage meltdown had toppled giants like Lehman Brothers, the largest bankruptcy in U.S. history at the time, and forced Merrill Lynch, once a beacon of financial trust, into a fire sale to Bank of America. Millions lost their homes to foreclosure, and many more were upside down, owing more on their mortgages than their homes were worth. Retirement accounts bled value, with Boston College reporting a $6.6 trillion shortfall in Americans' retirement funds. The U.S. Census Bureau noted that poverty had climbed to nearly 15% by 2010, with over 4 million people slipping from the middle class into poverty. Kiyosaki, alongside Donald Trump in their earlier book Why We Want You to Be Rich, had warned of this growing wealth gap, and now it was unfolding before the world's eyes. The monkey trap, Kiyosaki explains, is our refusal to question these losses. Instead of letting go of old ideas, people clung tighter. Workers held on to jobs they hated, hoping to avoid layoffs. Homeowners gripped their properties, even as mortgage payments crushed them. Savers stuffed more money into banks, despite inflation eating away at their purchasing power. And students flocked back to school, racking up debt for degrees that promised jobs that no longer existed. Why? Because, like the monkey, they were conditioned to believe that holding on was safer than letting go. Kiyosaki's message is blunt. This conditioning is a trap, and only financial education can set you free. The economic storm, why the rules have changed. To understand why the monkey trap is so dangerous, we need to zoom out and see the economic forest, not just the trees. Kiyosaki argues that the decade from 2010 to 2020 would be the most volatile in history, a prediction rooted in 5 seismic shifts he outlines in the book. Let's unpack them, because they're the storm clouds gathering over the monkey's tree. First, the industrial age is over. It began around 1500 and ended around 2000, with the rise of the information age in 1989, when the World Wide Web was born. The industrial age rewarded countries with factories, technology, and strong labor unions, offering workers high-paying jobs and pensions for life. But today, technology replaces jobs, factories move to low-wage countries, and the U.S., once the world's industrial powerhouse, is now the biggest debtor nation in history. Social Security and Medicare are buckling under the weight of 78 million baby boomers retiring, with 52% lacking enough savings to survive. The old promise of a secure job and a golden retirement is a relic, yet millions still chase it. Second, the rules of money changed in 1971 when President Nixon took the U.S. dollar off the gold standard. This turned the dollar into fiat currency, essentially debt backed by nothing but trust. Since then, the dollar has lost 95% of its purchasing power, and Kiyosaki warns it won't take another 40 years to lose the rest. Savers, he says, are the biggest losers, as inflation erodes their wealth. Yet, like monkeys, people keep saving, unaware that governments are printing trillions to prop up failing economies, driving up the prices of gold, silver, and oil. Third, bank bailouts have ballooned since 1971. In the 1980s, they were in the millions. By the 1990s, billions, and post-2007, trillions. These bailouts, Kiyosaki notes, protect the rich, bankers, and Wall Street, while taxpayers foot the bill. The public's anger is palpable, but without financial education, most don't understand how the system works or why their taxes keep rising. Fourth, inflation is skyrocketing. Between 2000 and 2010, gold jumped from $282 to $1,405 an ounce, a 398% increase, while oil rose from $25 to $91 a barrel. Yet governments claim inflation is low, masking the rising costs of food, fuel, and essentials. Kiyosaki asks readers to imagine what these prices might be by 2020, urging them to invest in assets like gold before the masses catch on. Finally, the gap between the haves and have-nots is widening. As governments bail out banks, the rich get richer, while the middle class slides into poverty. In Camden, New Jersey, budget cuts slashed the police force by 50% in 2011, a stark example of declining public services. Meanwhile, the U.S. faces a $107 trillion debt when Social Security and Medicare are factored in, making bankruptcy, higher taxes, or more money printing inevitable. Each option, Kiyosaki warns, will reshape the global economy, hitting the financially uneducated hardest. Examples from the book, Real-World Traps. Kiyosaki doesn't just describe the trap, he shows it through real-world examples that hit close to home. Take the story of his poor dad, a highly educated man who served as Hawaii's superintendent of education. In 1973, he ran for lieutenant governor, lost, and was blacklisted from state jobs. With his savings, he bought an ice cream franchise, hoping to pivot to entrepreneurship, but it failed, wiping out his wealth. Despite his academic brilliance, his poor dad lacked financial education, clinging to the belief that a good job or a small business would save him. This, Kiyosaki says, is the monkey trap in action, a well-meaning man, trapped by his inability to adapt to a new economic reality. Another example is the 2007 financial crisis itself. Kiyosaki points to the collapse of Lehman Brothers and the near failure of firms like AIG and Fannie Mae. These institutions, led by graduates of elite schools, peddled subprime mortgages, labeled AAA by rating agencies like Moody's, controlled by Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, as safe investments. The result? A global crash that cost millions their homes and savings. Yet, in 2011, Merrill Lynch was back, urging people to rebuild their wealth with the same advisors who lost it. Kiyosaki sees this as a cruel irony. The financially uneducated keep trusting the system that betrayed them, like monkeys refusing to release the fruit. Kiyosaki also highlights the plight of baby boomers, many of whom followed the traditional advice of saving and investing in 401(k)s. By 2010, these plans were decimated, with defined benefit pensions losing $108 billion in a single month, according to Milliman Incorporated. The California Public Employees Retirement System, CalPERS, managing funds for 1.6 million people, faced a $500 billion shortfall, tarnished by risky investments and inefficiency. These examples show how even secure retirement plans are traps when you lack the knowledge to question them. Students, too, are caught in the trap. In 2010, school enrollments surged as people sought new degrees to escape unemployment. But Kiyosaki notes that student loans, unlike mortgages, can't be forgiven, trapping graduates in debt without jobs to pay it off. Compounding interest turns these loans into lifelong burdens, a modern equivalent of the monkey's clenched fist. The need for change, breaking free with financial education. So, how do you escape the monkey trap? Kiyosaki's answer is simple yet profound: financial education. The old rules, go to school, get a job, save money, invest in stocks, are obsolete in the information age. The world now rewards those who understand money, taxes, debt, and investments. Kiyosaki doesn't just want you to survive. He wants you to thrive, to see the crisis as an opportunity. The 2007 crash, he argues, was the best financial opportunity of his lifetime, and the decade ahead promises even more for those who are prepared. He contrasts his two dads to drive this home. His poor dad, with his PhD and government job, was trapped by his reliance on traditional education. His rich dad, an entrepreneur with no formal degree, taught Kiyosaki to question the system, learn about investments, and build wealth through action. In 1973, Kiyosaki chose his rich dad's path, enrolling in non-traditional classes on real estate, sales, and taxes. This gave him an unfair advantage, allowing him to build a real estate empire and later a global education business, while his peers toiled in high-tax, high-effort jobs. Kiyosaki's call to action is urgent. Let go of the fruit. Stop clinging to job security, savings, or a house as your financial savior. Instead, invest in learning how money works, how to use debt to buy assets, how to minimize taxes legally, how to spot opportunities in chaos. The world is full of money, he says, with trillions flowing from printed currency. But without education, you'll watch it pass you by, landing in the hands of the financially savvy. The monkey trap isn't just a story, it's a warning. As Kiyosaki sees it, the economic storm of 2010 to 2020, driven by the end of the industrial age, a devalued dollar, bailouts, inflation, and a widening wealth gap, demands a new mindset. His examples, from his poor dad's failed business to the 2007 crisis and the struggles of baby boomers and students, show the cost of staying trapped. Financial education is your key to freedom, a way to not just survive, but prosper in a borderless, tech-driven world. As we move deeper into unfair advantage, Kiyosaki will show you how to wield this knowledge, turning crises into opportunities. For now, ask yourself, what's in your fist? And are you ready to let go? Part 2. The Cash Flow Quadrant and the Power of Choice. At the heart of Kiyosaki's philosophy is the cash flow quadrant, a framework that divides how people earn income into 4 categories: E, employee; S, self-employed or small business; B, big business; and I, investor. Traditional education prepares people for the E and S quadrants, where they trade time for money, work hard, and pay the highest taxes. In contrast, the B and I quadrants, where the richest people operate, offer freedom, lower taxes, and wealth-building opportunities. This distinction is personal for Kiyosaki. His poor dad, a highly educated superintendent, urged him to follow the traditional path, get a degree, secure a job, climb the corporate ladder. But when his poor dad lost his job and failed in business, Kiyosaki saw the limitations of that advice. His rich dad, an entrepreneur, showed him a different path, one of financial literacy and strategic thinking. In 1973, fresh from the Vietnam War, Kiyosaki faced a crossroads. With a college degree and licenses as a pilot and ship officer, he could have pursued a secure career. Instead, he chose non-traditional education, enrolling in classes to learn about debt, sales, and tax strategies. This decision gave him an unfair advantage over his peers, who became doctors or lawyers but remained trapped in the E or S quadrants, working hard and paying high taxes. The B and I quadrants, Kiyosaki explains, require a mindset shift, learning to build systems, businesses, and use other people's money, investments, to create wealth. The cash flow quadrant, a map to freedom. Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant is a simple yet revolutionary tool, a grid that divides how people earn income into 4 categories. E for employee, S for self-employed or small business owner, B for big business owner, and I for investor. Picture a square split into 4 boxes. On the left side are the E and S quadrants, where most people live, trading time for money, working hard, and paying the highest taxes. On the right side are the B and I quadrants, where the wealthy operate, building systems and leveraging money to work for them, enjoying freedom and tax advantages. This quadrant isn't just about income. It's about mindset, values, and choices. It's about deciding whether you want security or freedom, a paycheck or a legacy. In the E quadrant, employees seek stability. They work for someone else, earning a salary, benefits, and maybe a pension. Think of teachers, corporate workers, or factory employees. They value predictability but sacrifice control. In the S quadrant, self-employed individuals or small business owners trade one boss for many clients or customers. Doctors, lawyers, and freelancers live here, often working harder than employees because their income stops when they do. The B quadrant is for big business owners, those with 500+ employees who build systems, like McDonald's or Apple, that run without their daily involvement. Finally, the I quadrant is for investors, who make money work for them through real estate, stocks, or other assets, often using other people's money. Kiyosaki's core argument is that traditional education trains us for the left side, E and S, where we're conditioned to work for ordinary income, taxed heavily, and trapped in the rat race. Schools teach us to read, write, and solve math problems, and professional schools prepare us to be doctors or lawyers, but they rarely teach us how to build businesses or invest wisely. The right side, B and I, requires financial education, a willingness to question the system, and the courage to choose a different path. This choice, Kiyosaki says, is your power, but it comes with a catch. You need to let go of old ideas to embrace it. Kiyosaki's personal crossroads, a tale of 2 dads. To bring the quadrant to life, Kiyosaki shares a deeply personal story from 1973 when he stood at his own crossroads. Fresh from the Vietnam War, at age 26, he was a college graduate with 2 professional licenses. One as a third mate on oil tankers for Standard Oil, the other as a U.S. Marine Corps pilot. These were tickets to high-paying, secure jobs in the E quadrant, safe, predictable paths. But Kiyosaki was restless. He didn't want to sail ships or fly helicopters for a paycheck. He wanted something more. He turned to his 2 dads for guidance. His poor dad, a highly educated man who had been Hawaii's superintendent of education, urged him to follow the traditional path, go back to school, earn a master's degree, maybe a PhD, and secure a government job. But Kiyosaki couldn't ignore the irony. His poor dad, at 54, was unemployed, blacklisted after running for lieutenant governor against his boss. He'd poured his savings into an ice cream franchise, hoping to leap into the S quadrant, but it failed, leaving him broke. Despite his academic brilliance, his poor dad was trapped, a living example of the left side's limitations. Kiyosaki's rich dad, an entrepreneur with no formal degree, offered a different vision. He introduced Kiyosaki to the cash flow quadrant, sketching it out to show the 4 paths. Rich dad didn't care about grades or prestigious schools. He valued skills, mentors, and real-world results. He asked Kiyosaki, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Not in a childish way, but as a challenge to choose his quadrant. Rich dad explained that the B and I quadrants, where the richest people operate, require non-traditional education, learning about taxes, debt, and investments. Inspired, Kiyosaki chose this path, enrolling in classes on real estate, sales, and tax strategies, setting the stage for his future wealth. This story isn't just about Kiyosaki, it's a mirror for us. His poor dad represents the millions who follow the E or S path, believing hard work and education guarantee success, only to find themselves stuck. His rich dad shows the power of choosing the right side, where systems and investments create freedom. Kiyosaki's decision to reject a secure job for financial education gave him an unfair advantage, allowing him to build a real estate empire and a rich dad company, while his peers toiled in high-tax, high-effort careers. Examples from the book, The Trap of the Left Side. Kiyosaki peppers unfair advantage with examples that show the consequences of staying on the left side of the quadrant. One striking case is the 2007 financial crisis, which exposed the fragility of E-quadrant thinking. As the subprime mortgage bubble burst, millions of employees lost jobs, with public sector cuts looming by 2010. In Camden, New Jersey, the police force was slashed by 50%, eroding safety and property values. A stark reminder that government jobs, once seen as secure, were no longer safe. These workers, trained to be employees, clung to the promise of stability, only to find it crumbling. In the S quadrant, Kiyosaki points to professionals like doctors and lawyers, who often earn high incomes but pay the highest taxes. He notes that top students from medical and law schools, despite their intelligence, are trapped in the S quadrant, working long hours and handing over much of their income to the government. Why? Because they lack financial education to move to the B or I quadrants, where tax loopholes and passive income abound. Kiyosaki shares an anecdote about a doctor friend, a brilliant surgeon who answers his own phone, makes appointments, and cleans his office. This doctor is a one-man show, stuck in the S quadrant because he can't delegate or systematize. If he stops working, his income stops, a classic S quadrant trap. Kiyosaki also highlights the plight of students, who are pushed into the E or S quadrants by an education system that ignores the right side. In 2010, as unemployment soared, school enrollment spiked, with students borrowing heavily for degrees. But student loans, unlike mortgages, can't be forgiven, and many graduates faced jobless futures with mounting debt. Kiyosaki sees this as a modern monkey trap. Young people clinging to the idea that a degree equals a job, unaware that the information age rewards B and I skills, not just credentials. On the right side, Kiyosaki offers glimpses of success. He mentions entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs, who built Apple in the B quadrant, creating systems that generate wealth without his daily involvement. In the I quadrant, Kiyosaki himself used bank loans to buy real estate, generating passive income that's largely tax-free. These examples show the power of choosing the right side, but they require a shift in thinking, away from security and toward opportunity. The power of choice, financial education as the key. The cash flow quadrant isn't just a diagram, it's a call to action. Kiyosaki emphasizes that we all have the power to choose our quadrant, but that choice hinges on financial education. Traditional schools prepare us for the E and S quadrants, teaching academic and professional skills, but ignoring the financial literacy needed for B and I. Why? Kiyosaki argues it's by design. The system needs employees and self-employed workers to pay taxes and keep the economy running. If everyone understood how to build businesses or invest, they'd pay less in taxes, use debt strategically, and question the system itself. Kiyosaki challenges readers to rethink common financial myths that keep us on the left side. Your house is an asset. It's a liability, draining cash through mortgages and upkeep. Save money. Inflation erodes savings, especially with fiat currency losing value since 1971. Invest in stocks and mutual funds. The 2000 to 2010 lost decade saw the Dow Jones stagnate, while gold soared 398%. Get out of debt. Good debt, used to buy income-producing assets, is a wealth-building tool. These myths, perpetuated by schools and financial planners, trap people in the E and S quadrants, working for ordinary income that's taxed at the highest rates. In contrast, B and I players focus on passive and portfolio income, which offer tax breaks and scalability. Kiyosaki's own journey, choosing real estate over a pilot's job, learning sales at Xerox, and building businesses, shows how financial education opens the right side. He didn't need a fancy degree. He needed mentors, skills, and a willingness to learn. The power of choice, Kiyosaki says, lies in questioning where your education is leading you. In 1973, he briefly enrolled in an MBA program but dropped out after 6 months, realizing it was training him to be a well-paid quadrant employee. Instead, he sought mentors from the B and I quadrants, like his rich dad, who taught him to think like a capitalist. This choice gave him freedom, while his peers, even the A students, remained trapped in high-tax, high-effort lives. The cash flow quadrant is more than a framework. It's a wake-up call to choose your financial destiny. Kiyosaki's stories of his poor dad's struggles, the 2007 crisis, and his own leap to the right side show the cost of staying on the left and the rewards of moving right. The information age demands financial education, not just academic or professional skills. As we dive deeper into unfair advantage, Kiyosaki will reveal how knowledge, taxes, debt, and risk can become your unfair advantages. But it starts with a choice to let go of old ideas and embrace a new path. So, which quadrant are you in? And where do you want to go? Part 3. Unfair advantage number 1: knowledge. What if the secret to wealth isn't luck, privilege, or even hard work, but something you can learn? In Unfair Advantage, The Power of Financial Education, Robert Kiyosaki declares that knowledge, specifically financial knowledge, is the ultimate unfair advantage in a world stacked against the uninformed. It's the edge that turns crises into opportunities, reduces risks, and unlocks wealth others can't see. In this 30-minute journey, we'll dive into the heart of Kiyosaki's first unfair advantage, exploring why traditional education fails us, how financial literacy sets you free, and what real-world examples reveal about the cost of ignorance. Through Kiyosaki's stories and sharp insights, you'll see how knowledge isn't just power. It's your ticket to thriving in an economy where the old rules no longer apply. Let's break the chains of financial ignorance together. 1. Knowledge as the system's blind spot. Kiyosaki kicks off this section with a bold claim. The biggest flaw in our education system isn't what it teaches, but what it teaches us to do with our lives. Schools churn out workers, doctors, engineers, teachers, accountants, trained to excel in their fields but clueless about money. This isn't an oversight. It's a feature of a system designed to produce employees, not capitalists. In the information age, where wealth flows to those who understand money, taxes, and investments, this gap is a death sentence for financial freedom. Kiyosaki argues that financial knowledge is your unfair advantage because it's the one thing the system doesn't want you to have. To understand why, let's rewind to the 2007 financial crisis, a catastrophe Kiyosaki uses as a wake-up call. The subprime mortgage meltdown wasn't caused by street hustlers or shady loan sharks. It was orchestrated by the smartest financial brains from top schools, graduates of Harvard, Yale, and Wharton. Firms like Lehman Brothers, which collapsed in 2008, and Merrill Lynch, bailed out by Bank of America, peddled toxic mortgages labeled AAA by rating agencies. AIG, another titan, needed a $180 billion bailout to survive. These institutions, led by highly educated elites, tanked the global economy, costing millions their homes, jobs, and savings. Yet, in 2011, when Kiyosaki wrote this book, these same firms were back, urging people to rebuild their wealth with the same advisors who lost it. The lesson? Academic brilliance doesn't equal financial wisdom. Kiyosaki draws a sharp line between education and training. In flight school, he was trained to fly helicopters, not educated on the geopolitics of Vietnam. Similarly, schools train students to follow financial dogma, save money, invest in mutual funds, live below your means, without teaching them to think critically about money. This Pavlovian conditioning, like a dog salivating at a bell, makes us easy prey for financial predators. When someone asks, "I have $10,000, what should I do?" the trained response from planners is, "Give it to me." Kiyosaki warns that without financial knowledge, you're handing over your future to a system that thrives on your ignorance. 2. The power of financial knowledge. So, what makes financial knowledge so powerful? Kiyosaki argues it's the lens that lets you see the world differently. With it, risks shrink, returns grow, and taxes dwindle. Without it, you're blind, stumbling through a financial jungle. Financial education isn't about memorizing stock tickers or mastering complex formulas. It's about understanding how money works, how to use debt to buy assets, how to leverage tax loopholes, how to spot opportunities in chaos. It's about asking the right questions, like, why does my savings account earn 1% while inflation runs at 3%? Or, why am I taxed on my income but not on my real estate profits? Kiyosaki shares a personal story to illustrate this. In 1973, after returning from Vietnam, he faced a choice: take a high-paying job as a pilot, an employee in the cash flow quadrant, or learn the skills of the investor quadrant. He chose the latter, enrolling in seminars on real estate, sales, and taxes. One class taught him how to use bank loans to buy rental properties, generating passive income that's largely tax-free. Another showed him how to structure businesses to deduct expenses like travel or home offices. This knowledge gave him an unfair advantage over his peers, who became doctors or lawyers but remained trapped in high-tax, high-effort jobs. By learning to think like a capitalist, Kiyosaki built wealth while others worked for paychecks. This advantage isn't just about making money, it's about control. Financially educated people don't fear market crashes, they profit from them. When the 2007 crisis hit, Kiyosaki saw it as the best financial opportunity of his lifetime. While others panicked, he bought foreclosed properties at bargain prices, using good debt to acquire assets that generated cash flow. Without knowledge, he'd have been as lost as the millions who trusted their advisors and lost everything. Knowledge, Kiyosaki says, is what separates the winners from the losers in any economy. 3. Examples from the book, The Cost of Ignorance. Kiyosaki doesn't just preach. He shows the stakes through vivid examples. One is the 2007 crisis itself, a masterclass in what happens when ignorance meets greed. He points to the subprime mortgage debacle, where banks bundled risky loans into securities, rated them as safe, and sold them to pension funds and investors. When the bubble burst, 5 million Americans lost their homes to foreclosure, and many more were upside down, owing more than their homes were worth. The financially uneducated trusted banks like Countrywide and advisors from Merrill Lynch, only to see their wealth evaporate. Kiyosaki notes the irony. These victims were often highly educated, engineers, teachers, executives, but lacked the financial literacy to question the system. Another example is the retirement crisis. In 2010, Boston College reported a $6.6 trillion shortfall in Americans' retirement funds, with 52% of baby boomers unprepared for retirement. The California Public Employees Retirement System, CalPERS, managing pensions for 1.6 million people, faced a $500 billion deficit, worsened by risky investments and inefficiency. Kiyosaki argues that retirees trusted 401(k)s and pensions without understanding their vulnerabilities. The 2000 to 2010 lost decade saw the Dow Jones stagnate, while gold soared 398%. Those with financial knowledge invested in assets like gold or real estate, sidestepping the carnage. The ignorant, trained to diversify in stocks, paid the price. Kiyosaki also points to students trapped by a lack of financial education. In 2010, as unemployment rose, school enrollments surged, with students borrowing heavily for degrees. But student loans, unlike mortgages, can't be discharged in bankruptcy, and many graduates faced jobless futures with compounding debt. Kiyosaki sees this as a systemic failure. Schools train students to be employees, not investors, leaving them vulnerable to a job market that's drying up. A financially educated student might have learned to start a business or invest in real estate instead of piling on debt for a degree with no guaranteed return. On the flip side, Kiyosaki offers himself as an example of knowledge in action. In the 1970s, he joined Xerox to learn sales, a skill he knew would serve him in the investor quadrant. Later, he used his knowledge to raise capital for oil partnerships, navigating complex tax laws to minimize his liability. These moves, grounded in financial education, allowed him to build wealth while others followed the crowd into dead-end careers. 4. Breaking free with financial education. Kiyosaki's message is clear. Financial knowledge is your escape hatch from the system's traps. But it's not something you'll find in a classroom. Traditional education, he argues, is stuck in the industrial age, training people to be obedient workers, not critical thinkers. The information age rewards those who learn continuously, seeking mentors and real-world experience over textbooks. Kiyosaki didn't go to business school. He learned from his rich dad, seminars, and trial and error. This non-traditional path gave him the tools to see opportunities where others saw risk. He challenges readers to take control of their education. Start by questioning financial myths. Is your house really an asset? Does saving money protect you from inflation? Is a diversified stock portfolio safe? Then, seek knowledge that aligns with the right side of the cash flow quadrant, business and investor. Learn how to use debt to buy income-producing assets, like rental properties. Study the tax code to find legal deductions. Understand market trends, like the rising value of gold, to stay ahead of the herd. Each piece of knowledge reduces your risk and amplifies your returns. Kiyosaki also emphasizes action. Knowledge without application is useless. In the 2007 crisis, he didn't just study real estate. He bought properties. When gold prices rose, he invested early, before the masses drove prices higher. This proactive mindset, fueled by financial education, is what sets the rich apart. They don't wait for permission or a perfect plan. They learn, act, and adapt. Financial knowledge is more than an advantage. It's a lifeline in a world where ignorance is exploited. Kiyosaki's examples, from the 2007 crisis to the retirement shortfall and student debt, show the devastating cost of financial illiteracy. His own journey proves that knowledge, not credentials, unlocks wealth and freedom. As we move deeper into unfair advantage, Kiyosaki will reveal how taxes, debt, and risk can become your allies. But it all starts with knowledge. So, ask yourself, are you ready to learn the rules of money? Or will you stay blind in a system that profits from your ignorance? The choice is yours. Start learning today. Part 4. Unfair Advantages #2.5. Taxes, Debt, Risk, and Compensation. What if the things you've been taught to fear, taxes, debt, risk, could become your greatest allies? In Unfair Advantage, The Power of Financial Education, Robert Kiyosaki flips conventional wisdom on its head, revealing how these forces, along with compensation, can be harnessed to build wealth. These are his unfair advantages number 2 through number 5, tools that the rich use to thrive while the uninformed struggle. In this 30-minute journey, we'll explore how financial education transforms taxes into savings, debt into assets, risk into opportunity, and compensation into exponential growth. Through Kiyosaki's stories and stark examples, you'll see why the financially literate play by different rules, turning the system's traps into stepping stones to freedom. Let's dive into the game the rich play and learn how you can play it too. Unfair advantage number 2. Taxes, playing the system's game. Taxes, Kiyosaki declares, are fair, but only if you know how to play the game. For most people, taxes are a punishment, siphoning off hard-earned income. Employees and self-employed workers in the E and S quadrants of the cash flow quadrant pay the highest rates, often 30 to 50% of their income, before they even see their paycheck. But the rich, operating in the B, big business, and I, investor, quadrants, use financial education to slash their tax bills legally, keeping more of their wealth. This is unfair advantage number 2, knowledge of the tax code. Kiyosaki learned this from his rich dad, who saw taxes not as a burden, but as a puzzle to solve. The tax code, he explained, is written to incentivize behaviors the government wants, like starting businesses or investing in real estate. For example, a B quadrant entrepreneur can deduct expenses like travel, home offices, or even car leases, reducing taxable income. An I quadrant investor can defer taxes on real estate gains through strategies like a 1031 exchange. Employees, however, get few deductions beyond a standard allowance, leaving them at the mercy of the IRS. Kiyosaki shares a personal example. In the 1970s, he structured his real estate investments to maximize deductions, writing off depreciation, interest, and property expenses. This lowered his taxable income, even as his cash flow grew. Meanwhile, his peers, doctors and lawyers in the S quadrant, paid top tax rates on every dollar earned, with little to deduct. The difference? Kiyosaki's financial education taught him to use the tax code as a tool, while others saw it as a trap. The 2007 financial crisis offers another example. While millions lost homes to foreclosure, savvy investors like Kiyosaki bought distressed properties, using tax-advantaged structures to shield their profits. Big banks, bailed out with taxpayer money, exploited loopholes to pay minimal taxes on their recovery. The lesson is clear. Taxes are only unfair if you don't know the rules. Financial education levels the playing field, turning a system designed to take your money into one that helps you keep it. Unfair advantage number 3. Debt. The good, the bad, and the wealthy. Debt is a 4-letter word for most people, synonymous with stress and struggle. But Kiyosaki argues that debt is unfair advantage number 3 when used wisely. The key is distinguishing good debt from bad debt. Bad debt, like credit card balances or car loans, buys liabilities that drain your wallet. Good debt, used by the rich, buys assets that generate income, like rental properties or businesses. Financial education teaches you to wield debt as a tool, not a chain. Kiyosaki's own story illustrates this. In the 1970s, he used bank loans to buy apartment buildings, leveraging other people's money, OPM, to acquire assets. The rent covered the mortgage and expenses, while the surplus became passive income. Over time, the properties appreciated, and he refinanced to buy more, all while deducting interest payments from his taxes. This strategy, rooted in financial knowledge, built his wealth. In contrast, his poor dad, a highly educated academic, saw all debt as bad, avoiding it even when it could have funded a business. When he finally borrowed to buy an ice cream franchise, it failed, leaving him with bad debt and no income. A cautionary tale of ignorance. The 2007 crisis underscores this advantage. While homeowners drowned in bad debt from overpriced mortgages, investors with financial education scooped up foreclosed properties using good debt. Kiyosaki himself bought bargains, knowing that real estate cycles recover. Banks, too, used debt strategically, borrowing at near-zero interest rates post-crisis to rebuild their balance sheets. The financially uneducated, however, saw debt as a trap, missing the opportunity to profit. Kiyosaki challenges the myth that being debt-free is financial freedom. Without good debt, you're limited to your own capital, slowing your wealth building. The rich borrow to invest, letting assets pay off the debt while they pocket the profits. This mindset, born of financial education, turns debt into a powerful ally. Unfair advantage number 4. Risk. Knowledge as your shield. Risk terrifies most people, conjuring images of stock market crashes or failed ventures. But Kiyosaki sees risk as unfair advantage number 4, manageable through financial education. The financially uneducated are sold high-risk investments, like mutual funds that lost value in the 2000 to 2010 lost decade, while being told they're safe. The educated, however, reduce risk by understanding markets and controlling their investments. Kiyosaki's real estate ventures show this in action. In the 1970s, he invested in properties others avoided, knowing how to analyze cash flow and market trends. When the 2007 crisis hit, he bought foreclosures, confident in their long-term value. His knowledge of real estate cycles and financing reduced his risk, while others, lacking such insight, panicked or stayed on the sidelines. Similarly, his investments in gold, which soared 398% from 2000 to 2010, were informed by understanding fiat currency's decline, not blind speculation. The retirement crisis offers a counterexample. Baby boomers, trusting advisors to diversify their 401(k)s, faced a $6.6 trillion shortfall by 2010 as stocks stagnated. The California Public Employees Retirement System, CalPERS, lost billions on risky bets, failing its 1.6 million members. These losses stemmed from ignorance, trusting experts without understanding the investments. Kiyosaki contrasts this with his own approach, investing in assets he controls, like real estate or businesses, where knowledge minimizes uncertainty. Financial education, Kiyosaki says, is your shield against risk. By learning to read markets, assess opportunities, and avoid herd mentality, you turn risk into a calculated step toward wealth. The rich don't avoid risk, they master it. Unfair advantage number 5. compensation, give more, gain more. The final unfair advantage, compensation, is governed by what Kiyosaki calls the law of compensation. Give more to receive more. In the E and S quadrants, people seek higher pay for less work, trading time for money. In the B and I quadrants, the rich create value, better products, lower prices, bigger impact, earning exponential returns. Financial education teaches you to shift from chasing paychecks to building systems that deliver value and wealth. Kiyosaki's GEO, Global Entrepreneurs Organization, program, a 3-year initiative, embodies this. It trains aspiring entrepreneurs to build S-quadrant businesses, then scale to B and I, focusing on solving problems for others. For example, a GEO participant might start a small service business, then systematize it to serve thousands, generating passive income. This contrasts with employees who demand raises without adding value or self-employed professionals, like Kiyosaki's Dr. Friend, who work harder for every dollar. Kiyosaki's own journey reflects this law. In the 1970s, he joined Xerox to learn sales, giving his employer dedication in exchange for skills that later fueled his businesses. His Rich Dad company, built with Sharon Lechter, delivers financial education to millions, creating value that compounds his wealth. In contrast, his Poor Dad, stuck in the E quadrant, sought promotions but never learned to create scalable value, limiting his income. The 2007 crisis highlights this advantage. Entrepreneurs who solved problems, like providing affordable housing post-foreclosure, thrived, while employees demanding job security struggled. Kiyosaki urges readers to think like capitalists, giving more through innovation and systems to receive more in wealth and impact. Taxes, debt, risk, and compensation aren't obstacles. They're opportunities for those with financial education. Kiyosaki's examples, from his tax-savvy real estate deals to his crisis-era investments, show how the rich use these unfair advantages to win. The 2007 crisis, retirement shortfalls, and employee struggles reveal the cost of ignorance. As we continue through Unfair Advantage, Kiyosaki will show how to build businesses and investments that amplify these advantages, but it starts with learning. So, are you ready to turn the system's rules into your tools? The game is on. Start playing like the rich. Part 5. The BI Triangle and Entrepreneurship. Imagine constructing a skyscraper without a blueprint. Each brick laid haphazardly, hoping it holds. That's how most people approach entrepreneurship, and it's why so many fail. In Unfair Advantage, The Power of Financial Education, Robert Kiyosaki introduces the BI Triangle, a framework that's like an architect's plan for building a thriving business. It's not just about passion or a great idea. It's about integrating 8 critical components to create something that endures. In this 30-minute journey, we'll explore the BI Triangle, its role in moving from the S, self-employed, to the B, big business, and I, investor, quadrants, and how entrepreneurship, done right, unlocks financial freedom. Through Kiyosaki's stories and examples, you'll see why discipline, systems, and financial education are the keys to building a business that works for you, not the other way around. Let's start constructing your future. 1. The BI Triangle, a blueprint for success. Kiyosaki's BI Triangle is a model for building a successful business, whether it's a small startup or a global empire. It's a pyramid with 8 integrities that must work together: mission, team, leadership, cash flow, communications, systems, legal, and product. Surprisingly, the product, the thing most entrepreneurs obsess over, is the least important, sitting at the top of the triangle. The foundation, Kiyosaki argues, is the mission, a purpose bigger than profit that drives everything else. Without a strong mission, the other integrities crumble and the business fails. Let's break it down. The mission is the why: solving a problem or improving lives. A team of skilled players, accountants, marketers, advisors, brings the mission to life. Leadership steers the ship, making tough calls and inspiring the team. Cash flow keeps the business alive, ensuring more money comes in than goes out. Communications, like sales and marketing, connect the business to customers. Systems, from accounting software to supply chains, make operations efficient. Legal agreements protect assets and ensure compliance. Finally, the product delivers the mission's promise to the world. Kiyosaki emphasizes that most entrepreneurs fail because they focus on the product without mastering the other integrities. In the S quadrant, self-employed individuals, like a doctor running a private practice, are often lone wolves, doing everything themselves. They're great at their craft, but terrible at building systems or delegating. To move to the B quadrant, where businesses employ 500+ people and run independently, you need the BI triangle. This requires financial education, discipline, and a shift from working in the business to working on it. Kiyosaki contrasts this with his own journey. In the 1970s, he and his wife Kim started small businesses, learning through trial and error. Their mission, to teach financial education, guided them, but early ventures struggled because they lacked systems or a strong team. By applying the BI triangle, they built the Rich Dad Company, a B quadrant business that now reaches millions globally, with systems and teams handling operations while Kiyosaki focuses on vision. 2. The GEO program, training entrepreneurs. To teach others this blueprint, Kiyosaki created the GEO, Global Entrepreneurs Organization, program, a 3-year initiative to train aspiring entrepreneurs. It's like flight school for business. You don't fly a jet on day one, and you don't build a B quadrant empire overnight. The program starts by helping participants create sustainable S quadrant businesses, mastering skills like sales, accounting, and marketing. Over time, it guides them to scale into the B and I quadrants, where systems and investments generate wealth without daily involvement. Kiyosaki compares GEO to his own learning process. In 1973, he didn't jump straight to real estate mogul status. He joined Xerox to learn sales, took seminars on taxes, and started small, buying single-family rentals. Each step built his skills, preparing him to scale. GEO does the same, emphasizing discipline over passion. Many entrepreneurs, Kiyosaki notes, are driven by excitement but lack the grit to handle setbacks or systematize their work. GEO teaches them to think like capitalists, focusing on cash flow, legal protections, and scalable systems. An example from the book is Kiyosaki's doctor friend, stuck in the S quadrant. This surgeon is brilliant but answers his own phone, schedules appointments, and cleans his office. His business depends on him, not systems, so he can't scale or take a vacation without losing income. GEO would teach him to hire a team, automate scheduling, and build a practice that runs independently, freeing him to invest in the I quadrant. In contrast, a B quadrant doctor might own a chain of clinics, leveraging the BI triangle to serve thousands while generating passive income. The GEO program also prepares entrepreneurs for the I quadrant, where true capitalists operate. Investors use other people's money, OPM, to fund ventures, but this comes with strict regulations to prevent fraud. Kiyosaki learned this raising capital for oil partnerships, navigating legal complexities to stay compliant. GEO trains participants to do the same, ensuring their businesses are legally sound as they scale. 3. Examples from the book, Success and Failure. Kiyosaki's examples bring the BI triangle to life, showing both the rewards of applying it and the pitfalls of ignoring it. One failure is his poor dad, a highly educated academic who tried entrepreneurship late in life. After losing his job as Hawaii's superintendent of education, he bought an ice cream franchise, hoping to leap into the S quadrant. But he lacked a mission beyond profit, had no team, and didn't understand cash flow or systems. The business failed, wiping out his savings and leaving him broke. His story shows what happens when you skip the BI triangle's integrities, even with good intentions. Another cautionary tale is the 2007 financial crisis, which exposed businesses with weak triangles. Firms like Lehman Brothers had products, mortgage-backed securities, but lacked leadership integrity, ignoring risks for short-term gains. Their systems failed to manage toxic assets, and legal oversights led to collapse. Employees and investors, caught in the fallout, saw how fragile businesses are without a solid foundation. Kiyosaki contrasts this with entrepreneurs who used the crisis to build stronger triangles, buying distressed assets with clear missions and robust systems. On the success side, Kiyosaki points to his Rich Dad Company, co-founded with Sharon Lechter. Their mission, to provide financial education, drove every decision. They built a team of writers, marketers, and educators, with Kiyosaki and Lechter as leaders. Systems like publishing and seminar networks ensured cash flow, while legal agreements protected their brand. Communications, through books and games like Cash Flow, reached millions. The product, books and seminars, was the final piece, delivering their mission. This B-quadrant business now operates globally, proving the triangle's power. Kiyosaki also nods to entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs, whose B-quadrant company, Apple, embodies the triangle. Jobs' mission to revolutionize technology inspired a loyal team. His leadership, though controversial, drove innovation. Apple's systems, supply chains, retail, and software generated massive cash flow, while legal protections safeguarded patents. Marketing communications created a global brand, and products like the iPhone delivered the mission. Jobs' success shows how the BI triangle scales vision into wealth. 4. Entrepreneurship in the information age. Kiyosaki sees entrepreneurship as the antidote to the information age's challenges. The industrial age's promise of job security is gone, replaced by a borderless, tech-driven economy. The BI triangle equips entrepreneurs to thrive in this chaos, turning ideas into systems that generate wealth. But it requires financial education, not just passion. Most S-quadrant entrepreneurs fail because they work in their business, not on it, like Kiyosaki's Dr. Friend. The B-quadrant demands you build systems that work without you, freeing you to invest in the I-quadrant. The 2007 crisis, Kiyosaki argues, was a golden opportunity for entrepreneurs with strong triangles. While employees lost jobs and S-quadrant businesses struggled, B-quadrant entrepreneurs bought foreclosed properties or launched innovative startups, leveraging cheap capital and market gaps. Financial education let them see the crisis as a chance to build, not a reason to fear. Kiyosaki urges readers to start small, but think big. The GEO program shows that anyone can learn the BI triangle's integrities, from cash flow to legal structures. Discipline, not luck, is the key. In the information age, technology and globalization amplify opportunities, but only for those who master entrepreneurship's blueprint. The BI triangle isn't just a tool, it's a mindset, shifting you from worker to capitalist. The BI triangle is your map to entrepreneurial success, turning dreams into systems that deliver freedom. Kiyosaki's examples, his poor dad's failure, Lehman's collapse, and the triumphs of Rich Dad and Apple, show the stakes of building a strong triangle. The GEO program proves that anyone can learn, with discipline and financial education. As we wrap up Unfair Advantage, Kiyosaki's call is clear: embrace entrepreneurship, master the BI triangle, and move to the B and I quadrants. The information age is yours to conquer. So, what's your mission, and are you ready to build? Part 6. A Case for Capitalism and the Future. What if the world's economic chaos isn't a crisis, but a chance to rewrite your future? Robert Kiyosaki makes a passionate case for true capitalism, not the corrupted version that bails out banks and buries the middle class, but a system where entrepreneurs create value, solve problems, and build wealth. This final section looks ahead to a decade of upheaval and opportunity from 2010 to 2020, where financial education is your greatest weapon. In this 30-minute journey, we'll explore Kiyosaki's vision of capitalism, his call to become part of the solution, and the examples that show why the future belongs to those who learn, adapt, and act. Buckle up. This is about seizing control in a world that's changing faster than ever. 1. True capitalism versus the corrupted system. Kiyosaki begins with a fiery distinction. True capitalism isn't what we see today. The system we live in, he argues, is a perversion, riddled with cronyism, bailouts, and Ponzi schemes masquerading as safety nets. True capitalism is about creating value, delivering better products at lower prices, solving real problems, and enriching lives. It's the entrepreneur opening a small business to serve their community, the inventor designing a life-changing technology, the investor funding a startup that reshapes an industry. This is the capitalism Kiyosaki champions, and it's under attack. He points to the roots of the problem. 1913, when the Federal Reserve and IRS were created. The Fed, a private bank, gained control over the U.S. money supply, enabling fiat currency and unchecked money printing. The IRS, meanwhile, taxed income, hitting employees and the self-employed hardest while offering loopholes to businesses and investors. This system, Kiyosaki says, fuels inflation, devalues savings, and widens the wealth gap. By 2011, when the book was published, the 2007 financial crisis had exposed its flaws. Banks like Lehman Brothers collapsed, while others, like AIG and Merrill Lynch, were bailed out with trillions in taxpayer money. The rich got richer, and the middle class slid toward poverty, with the U.S. Census Bureau reporting 15% of Americans below the poverty line in 2010. Kiyosaki calls Social Security and Medicare Ponzi schemes unsustainable as 78 million baby boomers retire with inadequate savings. The U.S. faces a $107 trillion debt when these programs are factored in, forcing leaders to choose between bankruptcy, higher taxes, or more money printing, each a disaster for the financially uneducated. He blames leaders' lack of financial education, who resort to short-term fixes that fuel inflation. Gold, at $1,405 an ounce in 2010, and oil, at $91 a barrel, signaled this erosion, yet governments downplayed the crisis, leaving the public unprepared. True capitalists, Kiyosaki argues, don't rely on bailouts or handouts. They innovate, adapt, and thrive in any economy. The corrupted system, however, rewards socialists, those expecting free rides, from welfare recipients to bailed-out bankers. Kiyosaki's case for capitalism is a call to reject this dependency and embrace the entrepreneurial spirit that drives progress. 2. The future, a decade of opportunity. Kiyosaki sees the decade from 2010 to 2020 as the most volatile in history, but also the most promising for those with financial education. The information age, born with the World Wide Web in 1989, has rewritten the rules. Technology and globalization create opportunities unimaginable in the industrial age, but only for those who let go of old ideas. The education system, stuck in the past, trains employees, not entrepreneurs or investors. This mismatch, Kiyosaki says, is why the middle class is shrinking, with 4 million Americans slipping into poverty by 2010. He paints a vivid picture of the future. Technology will replace jobs, from factory workers to accountants, faster than schools can retrain them. Globalization means competition is borderless. Your rival could be in Bangalore or Beijing. The U.S., once the world's industrial leader, is now its biggest debtor, with public services like Camden, New Jersey's police force cut by 50% in 2011 due to budget crises. Yet, amidst this chaos, Kiyosaki sees opportunity. The 2007 financial crisis, which he calls the best financial opportunity of his lifetime, showed how the financially educated can profit from downturns. By 2020, he predicts, those who understand money will dominate, while the ignorant will struggle. Financial education is the key to seizing this future. It teaches you to see crises as opportunities, to buy assets when prices crash, to start businesses when others retreat, to invest in trends like gold or technology before the herd. Kiyosaki urges readers to become lifelong learners, seeking mentors and real-world experience over degrees. The information age rewards those who adapt, and capitalism, done right, is the vehicle to do it. 3. Examples from the book, Capitalism in Action. Kiyosaki's examples bring his vision to life, contrasting true capitalism with the corrupted system. One failure is his poor dad, a PhD who believed in industrial age ideals. Get a degree, secure a job, save for retirement. After losing his job and failing at a franchise business, he was crushed by debt and taxes, a victim of the system's traps. His lack of financial education left him unprepared for a changing world, embodying the socialist mindset Kiyosaki critiques, expecting security without creating value. The 2007 crisis offers another stark lesson. Banks like Countrywide and Lehman Brothers, led by educated elites, peddled subprime mortgages as safe investments, triggering a global collapse. 5 million Americans lost homes, and retirement funds bled $6.6 trillion per Boston College. Yet, the system bailed out the culprits, while taxpayers suffered. This isn't capitalism, Kiyosaki says, it's cronyism. True capitalists, like Kiyosaki, used the crisis to buy foreclosed properties, leveraging financial education to turn chaos into wealth. On the success side, Kiyosaki points to Steve Jobs, a true capitalist who transformed technology. Apple's iPhone, launched in 2007, didn't just sell a product. It created value by connecting people, streamlining work, and sparking new industries. Jobs' mission-driven approach, backed by systems and innovation, made Apple a quadrant giant, enriching lives and shareholders. This is capitalism at its best, solving problems, not exploiting them. Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Company is another example. Built with Sharon Lechter, it delivers financial education through books, games, and seminars, empowering millions to escape the rat race. Its mission, to teach people to fish, not give them fish, drives its success, proving that value creation trumps handouts. In the 2007 crisis, while others panicked, Kiyosaki expanded his business, using downturns to grow his reach and impact. 4. Becoming part of the solution. Kiyosaki's vision isn't just about personal wealth, it's about changing the world. He urges readers to become part of the solution, not the problem. The problem is the growing wealth gap, fueled by a system that rewards ignorance and dependency. The solution is financial education, learning to create value, build businesses, and invest wisely. By doing so, you not only secure your future but also teach others to do the same, breaking the cycle of poverty and entitlement. He challenges the socialist mindset, from those demanding government handouts to employees expecting pensions without contributing value. True capitalists, he says, take responsibility for their finances, using tools like the BI triangle to build sustainable businesses. The information age amplifies this opportunity, with technology enabling small entrepreneurs to reach global markets. A kid with a laptop can start a business that rivals corporations, but only with financial education. Kiyosaki's call to action is urgent. Let go of old ideas. Stop clinging to job security, savings, or the myth that a degree guarantees success. Instead, learn how money works, taxes, debt, investments, and use that knowledge to create. The decade from 2010 to 2020, he predicts, will reward those who see opportunity in chaos, like the entrepreneurs who thrived post-2007 by solving housing or job market problems. By becoming a capitalist, you join a movement to rebuild the economy, one value-driven business at a time. Kiyosaki's case for capitalism is a rallying cry to embrace your power in a turbulent world. His examples, his poor dad's failure, the 2007 crisis's betrayal, and the triumphs of Jobs and Rich Dad, show the stakes of financial education. The future belongs to those who learn, adapt, and create value, using true capitalism to solve problems. As Unfair Advantage concludes, Kiyosaki leaves you with a challenge. Will you be part of the problem, clinging to a broken system, or part of the solution, building a better world? The information age is waiting. Start learning and shape the future. Conclusion. Unfair Advantage is a rallying cry to reject the status quo and embrace financial education as your greatest weapon. Kiyosaki doesn't promise easy answers. He challenges you to question everything: your education, your advisors, your beliefs about money. The book's strength lies in its clarity. The world has changed, and clinging to industrial age ideas like job security or savings will leave you trapped. By mastering the cash flow quadrant, leveraging taxes, debt, and knowledge, and building businesses with integrity, you can thrive in the information age. The book's relevance endures beyond 2011. Its warnings about debt, inflation, and an outdated education system resonate in today's economy, where student loan defaults and economic uncertainty persist. Kiyosaki's call to action, to learn, adapt, and create value, empowers readers to take control in an unpredictable world. However, the book isn't without flaws. Its repetitive emphasis on the B and I quadrants can feel dogmatic, and some may question Kiyosaki's dismissal of traditional investments without deeper nuance. Still, its core message, that financial education is freedom, rings true. As you close this audiobook, ask yourself, are you ready to let go of the fruit in the trap? Will you invest in your financial education to become part of the solution? The choice is yours. In a world of uncertainty, knowledge is your unfair advantage. Use it to change your future, and the world's.